The entire Aurora Airline system collapsed in just 7 minutes. Every screen across Seattle-Tacoma Airport shifted from soothing blue to a harsh, flashing red, displaying the same cold message: payment declined, transaction frozen. The speakers continued announcing boarding calls, calm and routine, but beneath that familiar noise, a storm was crawling through every check-in counter, every boarding gate, every aircraft waiting for takeoff. Aurora's card scanners failed. The booking system locked up. Ground staff exchanged panicked glances, all realizing at the same moment that they were standing at the epicenter of an invisible detonation. Inside the business lounge, 58-year-old CEO Mark Henderson stood frozen before his laptop. A new email had appeared, short, blunt, and impossible to ignore. It was from Summit United Bank Aurora's primary financial backer. Due to serious ethical concerns and potential legal risks, Summit United is temporarily freezing all credit lines and pending disbursements for Aurora Airlines, effective immediately. Mark read it once, then again. Refreshed the screen. Still the same words. He did not hear the purser reporting that the company cards were being declined. He did not hear the operations department calling repeatedly through the coordination hotline. The only sound he could hear was his own heartbeat pounding like a hammer against his temples. "This cannot be happening," he whispered. Summit would never take action this extreme without a massive reason. To freeze the entire credit structure of the third-largest airline in the country, someone had pulled the trigger, and the name signed at the bottom of the email was the bullet: Ariana Cole, CEO of Nexus Logic, premier client of Summit United Bank. In that moment, one image rose sharply in Mark's mind: the face of the black woman his crew had dragged off a flight just 2 days earlier. She had stood in the aisle back, straight eyes, steady, pinned between 2 security officers, as if she were a threat. Mark had seen the internal report skimmed the name A. Cole like it was a trivial detail in a minor incident. He had thought another PR mess. Legal will handle it. He had assumed she was just another black passenger Aurora could pacify with a short apology and a discount voucher. He had been wrong, deeply wrong. Across the terminal, questions burst out at once. Why isn't my flight boarding? Is this delayed already? Why does the app say my payment is unverified? Ticket agents hammered their keyboards helplessly, the system spinning endlessly as if mocking them. A young agent held her phone to her ear, her voice shaking. "I cannot print boarding passes. Every Aurora booking says payment issue." On the top floor of Aurora headquarters, the flight operations room, normally a wall of calm, glowing data, was turning colors. Routes from Seattle to Chicago, New York, Los Angeles shifted from green, meaning on time, to yellow, meaning delayed, then red, meaning cancelled. A young supervisor. Jack swallowed hard. "Boss, look at this. The entire network is locked. Not just the cards, even our fuel escrow accounts are showing unavailable." This blow was not aimed at a single flight. It was strangling the entire airline. Mark snapped his laptop shut, his hands suddenly looking 10 years older. He understood the language of finance better than anyone. A $150 million loan for their fleet expansion was now suspended. Daily operating funds were cut off, and worst of all, Summit had written the words ethical concerns. What did that mean? It meant the bank had seen something ugly, something rotten, something worth choosing the other side. And the other side was her. At the same time, in a quiet lounge in San Francisco, Ariana Cole placed her phone gently on the table. The screen showed her sent message an email from Monica Ruiz, Nexus Logic's chief legal officer, containing everything aircraft camera footage, the testimony of Dr. Amanda Blake Aurora's internal files and data on similar past incidents. Ariana did not smile. She did not feel triumphant. What she felt was heavier, deeper, like the weight of pulling a trigger, knowing the bullet would rip through an entire system, not just a single person. In her memory, the moment she was dragged from seat 1A remained vivid, the security officer's hand squeezing her arm, her laptop hitting the cabin door, the eager eyes of passengers secretly recording, and deep in her throat burned a single question. Why am I not allowed to sit here like everyone else? Was it because she was a woman? Because she was a black, because in their eyes, someone like her could never truly belong in first class. They had no idea who she was. They did not know that the moment she stepped off that jet bridge, she was still the executive leading a billion-dollar company, still a diamond-tier banking client whose voice made institutions listen, still someone who could, with one decision, shake the foundation of an entire airline. They saw a black woman in simple business clothes, no showy logos, no entourage, no assistant pulling her luggage. They thought she was the easiest one to push aside. They never imagined they were ejecting the one person who could destroy Aurora with a single choice. Back in Seattle, Mark's phone vibrated non-stop. Missed calls from the head of legal, the chairman of the board, Summit United's representative, and an unknown number from San Francisco. That number, more than anyone else, he knew he should answer. But he did not. Not because he was busy, but because in a rare moment for a CEO he hesitated. Behind the glass door, the executive meeting room was packed. On the screen, a business reporter was discussing a serious discrimination allegation involving a major airline headquartered in Seattle. A blurred image of Oriana being escorted by security flashed behind her. Mark remembered the internal report he had received 2 days earlier. Flight manager Tom Sanders had written, "Passenger A." Cole refused to comply with crew instructions, posing a safety concern. Handled per protocol. One line. Mark had believed it. He forwarded it to legal with one note: handle it quietly. He asked no questions. He did not request the footage. He did not ask who A. Cole was what she did, whether she had any history with the airline. He had thought, as he had always thought, for 30 years. Just another passenger. At worst, a small news story that will fade. Not this time. If you are watching this story, ask yourself, if one day you stood at an aircraft door, being dragged out in front of dozens of strangers because you did not look like someone who belonged in first class, what would you do? Would you stay silent, telling yourself to let it go because you had work to do? Or would you stand up and fight? Not just to reclaim your seat, but to strike back at the entire system that labeled you as second class. Comment below 1. If you believe you would fight to the end. 2, if you believe you would stay silent to protect your safety and your career. And if you have ever witnessed or experienced injustice as tap, like not for the algorithm but to say, I see it. I remember. I do not consider it a small thing. Because for Oriana it was no longer small. It was the line between a life of silence and a battle that could reshape the airline industry. That afternoon, before the sun dipped behind Elliott Bay, Aurora Airlines released an official statement about a technical issue causing widespread delays and cancellations. The press release was polished and spotless, with no mention of discrimination. But in Mark's inbox, the email from Summit United Bank remained, and at the bottom of that message, Ariana Cole had written a quiet declaration of war. Nexus logic believes that in a fair system, no one is removed from a seat they have paid for because of their race or gender. As Summit's largest financial client, we cannot remain silent in the face of such actions. Mark lifted his gaze, seeing his reflection in the glass. In the tired eyes of an aging CEO for the first time in many years, he saw something like fear. Not fear of an angry passenger. Fear of a woman he had underestimated, a woman who held the power to crush the heart of his entire company. And this was only the beginning. Now let us rewind. Back to the morning, Ariana stepped onto that flight with a first-class ticket in hand, unaware that what should have been a routine journey would soon ignite the sky over Aurora. Before she became the woman who brought an entire airline to its knees, Ariana Cole was just a little girl, sitting in a tiny room, listening to rain beating against the rusted tin roof of a workers' housing block in Cleveland, Ohio. Every night, her mother, Linda Cole, a high school math teacher, returned home close to 10, her shoulders exhausted, but her smile held together for her daughter. Linda would set her bag down, prepare a simple dinner, and ask the same familiar question. "How far did you get today?" Anna and Ariana, only 12, but already carrying a sharp, brilliant light in her eyes, would point to the discarded old computer their neighbor had thrown out. "I think I can make it run faster. It isn't broken, it's just been forgotten." One sentence, but Linda understood. Her daughter was not just smart. She refused to accept the limits the world placed on her. Ariana grew up in a home overflowing with love, but starved of resources. Tuition clothes, textbooks. Everything was a puzzle Linda solved while juggling 3 jobs, teaching by day, tutoring at night, and working at a small grocery store every weekend. Ariana learned to take care of herself, from cooking to fixing electrical outlets and fans, but there was only one thing she loved so fiercely that she forgot to eat or sleep computers. By 13, she could take apart a CPU, clean every component, upgrade its RAM, and optimize the operating system. At 14, she wrote clumsy little programs that kept breaking, but she kept trying. At 16, she created software that helped her school store student grades and sync with the printer, leaving the entire administrative office stunned. But talent didn't shield Ariana from prejudice. "You're sure this class is the right level for you?" The words of the lab instructor still cut into her memory like a blade. That day, she had signed up for the advanced programming course, a classroom filled with boys, white teenagers in hoodies talking about games and CPUs like it was their native language, and her a black girl in an old jacket clutching a notebook full of handwritten code. The instructor looked at the roster, then at Ariana and frowned. "We don't want you to fall behind. You should choose the basic class instead." Ariana stood still. She didn't cry. She didn't protest. But something inside her tightened, painful and cold. They didn't care what she could do. They only cared about the color of her skin. Her mother's words echoed that night as she lay awake. Linda had once told her, "The world is unfair, but you rise not to prove yourself to them, but to open the path for the girls who come after you." The next day, Ariana returned to the advanced class, and on the first exam she scored a perfect mark, something no one else, not even the instructor, achieved. The looks in the room changed, but Ariana never forgot the first look. By senior year, Ariana applied to Stanford, a school she once believed only rich kids could enter. The acceptance letter and full scholarship arrived on a light, snowy afternoon. Linda wrapped her daughter in her arms and cried like a child. "You did it. You really did it." Ariana left Cleveland carrying her mother's dreams and the invisible scars left by years of discrimination. But Stanford, with all its prestige, was not much different. At her first career fair, Ariana stood among towering booths of tech giants, her resume flawless and polished through months of late-night study. Her heart sank as she watched recruiters beam at the white male students ahead of her, shaking their hands and accepting their resumes like welcoming future engineers. But when it was Ariana's turn, the smiles faded. The recruiters glanced down at her name tag to check whether she was standing in the wrong place. One whispered, just loud enough for her to hear, "We are looking for candidates with the right background." Background. She had written software since she was 13, built systems from nothing, earned a full scholarship in Stanford's top 1%. Yet in their eyes, everything reduced to a single factor: her race. Ariana could have kept searching for acceptance from others. Instead, she created her own. At 26, in a cramped studio apartment no larger than a conference room, Ariana founded Nexus Logic with 2 part-time programmers. They worked nearly 20 hours a day. They couldn't afford an office. They had no advisors. No one believed they would survive 3 months. But they had something Ariana never lost: resilience. The first year, they sold cybersecurity software to 2 small companies. The second year, 3 major clients approached them. The third year, Nexus Logic secured $1 million contract with an international telecom corporation. The fourth year, a Series C investment pushed the company to a valuation of $4.1 billion. Ariana appeared on Forbes with the title, "The youngest black female CEO to lead a unicorn company." She smiled during the interview, but deep down, victory did not erase her old wounds. It only made her understand more clearly her success would always be demanded twice as much and recognized half as often. And that was why she stayed humble, never flaunting wealth or power. She carried only one lesson: people dismiss a black woman's worth easily until the day they are forced to confront the truth. On the morning when sunlight spilled over Austin 3 days before the fateful flight, Ariana stood before the glass windows on the 28th floor of Nexus Logic headquarters. She was preparing for the most important deal of her career, one that would expand her cybersecurity platform into Africa and Southeast Asia. Ethan walked in and handed her the prep file for her trip. Ariana nodded with a quiet smile. She did not know that only days later, that very flight, that moment, she stepped into the first-class cabin. That judgmental glance from a stranger in uniform would ignite a confrontation that would change not only her life, but the entire American aviation industry. And more importantly, for the first time in her life, the people who had underestimated her would finally learn who Ariana Cole truly was. The Austin sky was so clear that morning it looked like nothing in the world could go wrong. Sunlight glinted off the glass of the Nexus Logic Tower, making it shine like a technological lighthouse, a monument Ariana Cole had spent her entire youth building, with her own hands and unwavering resilience. That morning, she left headquarters earlier than usual, not because of pressure, not because of nerves, but because what awaited her in San Francisco was the deal she had been preparing for nearly her entire life. If successful, Nexus Logic would no longer be just another tech company. It would become the cybersecurity backbone for dozens of developing nations. At the parking garage, Ethan Gray, her assistant, waited with a mixture of excitement and pride in his eyes. "Your schedule is all set," he said, as he opened the car door. "Aurora Air First Class, Seat 1A. Car pickup, hotel documents. Everything is prepared. No need to worry about anything." Ariana gave a small smile, rare, but enough for Ethan to know she was entering battle mode. "Thank you, Ethan. This time we have to get everything right." "You're always at your best," he replied, half joking, half sincere. Austin Bergstrom International Airport was busy that morning, but not chaotic. People pulled suitcases behind them, with the determined look of travelers whose boarding gates represented entirely different futures. Ariana walked straight into the priority section, the lane reserved for first-class passengers, elite members, and those whose status points spoke for them. But as she scanned her ticket, the young check-in agent with neatly tied blonde hair glanced up at Ariana with a flicker of confusion. That look lasted less than a second, but Ariana recognized it immediately. She had seen it hundreds of times. In her high school lab, at Stanford career fairs, in meetings with new partners, a look that silently asked a question no one ever spoke aloud. "Someone like you really flies in this section," but Ariana had learned not to let those invisible needles break her skin. She smiled at the agent and kept her voice professional. "I'm checking in for first-class flight AA-204 to San Francisco." "Yes, of course," the girl replied, her nervous smile betraying her discomfort. Her hand scanned the ticket again, as if the system might be wrong. It wasn't. But something else was wrong, the way the world viewed Ariana. She took her ticket back, thanked her, and headed for security. Inside the first-class cabin, the light was soft, the seats reclined deeply, and the scent of oak and premium leather lingered in the air. It was a space designed for peace and exclusivity, reserved for those Aurora Air deemed worthy of being there. Ariana stepped in, placed her bag under the seat, and opened her laptop, the device containing the presentation that had kept her awake for 3 nights. A flight attendant appeared behind her, a woman in her early 40s, fit neat hair, and a smile so perfectly practiced it almost felt too perfect. The name pinned to her chest read, "Heather Morris, Senior Flight Attendant." "Good morning," Heather began. "Would you like anything before takeoff? Water, champagne?" "Water is fine, thank you." Heather nodded, but her eyes drifted from Ariana's face to seat 1A, then back again. A silent evaluation, a comparison running in her mind, not between person and seat, but between person and the usual image of a first-class passenger. "Have you flown Aurora's first class?" before Heather asked, her tone soft, but carrying an unmistakable layer of suspicion. Ariana closed her laptop. Inside her chest, something dipped, not because of the question, but because of its familiarity. She had been asked that at a business gala, in a Stanford boardroom, even when she guest lectured at MIT. "Yes." "I fly often," Ariana replied, keeping her voice even. Heather gave a strained smile. "Of course. But may I see your ticket?" Unnecessary. No one else in the cabin was being asked, but Ariana handed over her phone anyway, unwilling to escalate the moment. Heather checked it far too long, longer than protocol, longer than courtesy. "Thank you, Miss Cole," Heather said, emphasizing Ariana's last name, as if testing its significance. Then she walked away. Ariana exhaled slowly, not out of exhaustion, but out of frustration. Frustration at having to justify her existence in spaces she had fully paid to be in. It was just a flight, Do not let it get to you, she told herself. But deep down, she knew better. Injustice was never easy to ignore. It seeped in, quietly corroding faith in the fairness of the world. The cabin door opened one last time, and an older man entered, wearing a super 150s grey suit, a deep navy tie that screamed big city wealth and silver hair, styled like he had just stepped out of a boardroom. Charles Whitmore, 63, a long-time shareholder of Aurora Airlines, a man accustomed to existing in spaces where power was always switched on. He scanned the cabin, then stopped right at seat 1A. Instead of checking his ticket, he simply declared, "This is my seat." Ariana looked up. "I believe you may be mistaken, no." He cut in sharply, as if she had just stolen something from him. "I always sit in 1A. The crew knows that." Heather appeared instantly, her voice soft as silk. "Welcome, Mr. Whitmore. Let me see your ticket." Charles handed it over. Seat 4D. It didn't matter. To someone like Charles, the seat assignment meant nothing compared to what he wanted. And Heather, judging by her worried eyes, understood that perfectly. She turned to Ariana, lowering her voice so only she could hear. "Ms. Cole, would you mind switching to another seat? Mr. Whitmore prefers this one." That moment, brief as it was, sent a cold shiver down Ariana's spine. Not because of the request, but because of how natural it seemed. As if Heather felt no need to hide the fact that she valued a wealthy white man more than a black woman, regardless of who was in the right. Ariana met Heather's gaze directly. "I'm sorry. I reserved this seat in advance. I am sitting where I belong." A polite answer, a rightful decision, a firm boundary. And in that moment, the gears of fate began to turn. In Charles's irritated stare, in Heather's disapproving frown, in the stiff posture of Tom, the purser approaching from the galley. Ariana had no way of knowing that within minutes they would force her out of the seat she had paid for, unknowingly triggering a chain of events that would bring the entirety of Aurora Airlines to its knees. Charles Whitmore stood there like an ancient monolith blocking the aisle, his cold grey eyes locked on Ariana, as if she had dared sit on his personal throne. No one spoke for several seconds, but the silence was thick, heavy enough to make the air itself feel suffocating. Heather Morris offered a polite smile, though it was aimed only at Charles, not at Ariana. "Mr. Whitmore let me take care of this," Heather said, her voice sweet to the point of being artificial. Ariana saw the way Charles's shoulders relaxed, the way he carried himself, with the ease of someone who knew he didn't have to do anything. Aurora Airlines had considered him a special client for years, and he was used to a world that bent itself around him. Heather turned back, lowering her voice, so only Ariana could hear. "Ms. Cole's seat 1A is Mr. Whitmore's preferred seat. I need you to move to another one." Ariana inhaled slowly, not out of anger but exhaustion. Exhaustion from seeing this happen to her far more times than anyone could imagine. "No," Ariana said. "I reserved this seat. I need the space for an important presentation." Heather blinked, her smile vanishing entirely. "You can take seat 3C, Heather said. "It is also first class. There's not much difference." Ariana met her eyes directly. "Seat 3C is not the seat I paid for." A few passengers nearby glanced over, then immediately looked down at their phones, pretending not to notice what was unfolding. Everyone knew the feeling of wanting to help, but fearing inconvenience, fearing being seen as interfering, fearing being considered too sensitive. A white woman in seat 2B looked at Ariana with an expression that was both sympathetic and quietly judgmental, as if Ariana were making a scene. Meanwhile, Charles placed his luggage in the overhead bin without even looking at her, as he said, "Young lady, that seat is mine. I always sit there." Ariana lifted her chin steady. "Your ticket says 4D. Charles let out a dry laugh, brittle as crumpled paper. "There are people who will never understand that certain seats are meant for those who deserve them. Everyone knows I sit here every week." Ariana said nothing, though her heart tightened painfully, that familiar echo of every lab room, every career fair, every boardroom where someone doubted her. Not because she lacked ability, but because they did not want to believe someone like her belonged in that position. Heather immediately went to call the purser. Moments later, Tom Sanders appeared, a man in his 40s with broad shoulders and sharp, chilly eyes. His voice was low and heavy with manufactured authority. "What seems to be the issue?" Heather answered quickly. "She's refusing to give up the seat for Mr. Whitmore." Tom looked at Ariana with the kind of gaze meant to find fault, then said Miss Cole to keep this flight running smoothly. "I need you to move to another seat." Ariana raised her head. "I reserved this seat. I'm not in the wrong." Tom changed tone sharper now. "This is a request, and you should cooperate." Ariana felt the stares around her. Someone sighed. Someone looked away. Someone clicked their tongue as if she were the inconvenience. She understood exactly what was happening. No one cared who was right or wrong. They just wanted quiet. They wanted the first-class cabin to return to its old order, the order where people like Charles carried all the privilege, and people like Ariana were expected to stay in their place. But Ariana did not bow. "I'm not moving. I'm not wrong. And you are prioritizing him only because he is." Tom cut her off, his voice icy. "You are becoming uncooperative. I do not want to call security." Heather's eyes brightened with satisfaction at his threat, as if Oriana was finally being pushed back into the position she believed Ariana belonged in. Ariana looked at them, at the purser, the senior attendant, the privileged passenger, and felt a slow, simmering anger rise. She did not yell. She did not tremble. She did not step back. "You are threatening me with security because I am sitting in the seat I paid for." Tom leaned closer, his voice dropping. "You are disrupting the flight. This is your final chance to cooperate." Charles stood behind him, arms crossed, smiling triumphantly. Ariana took a deep breath. This was a moment countless black travelers had experienced in spaces like this, a moment no one prepares you for. No textbook, no guidance. Only instinct, either endure humiliation or stand your ground. Just as Tom prepared to call security, a woman's voice rang out. "She's telling the truth. I saw her sitting here when I boarded." Every head turned. It was Dr. Amanda Blake, 41, a neurologist with a tall frame, calm features, and razor-sharp eyes. What froze the cabin was not what she said, but the fact that she dared to say it. Amanda stepped forward toward Ariana. "Mr. Whitmore arrived after her. She is not in the wrong. The crew needs to follow protocol, not a VIP's preference." Heather's expression tightened. "Ma'am, please return to your seat." Amanda did not move. "No, I will be a witness if necessary." Tom paused, clearly not expecting a passenger to intervene. But instead of checking right from wrong, he chose the path he always took. "Dr. Blake, this is an internal matter." "Please sit down." Amanda met his gaze without flinching. "And I'm telling you that your internal matter is violating your own anti-discrimination policy." The air seemed to freeze. Ariana thanked Amanda with her eyes a quiet gratitude, because she rarely received protection from strangers in moments like this. But the harsh truth was simple. Tom did not listen. Heather did not listen. And Charles certainly did not listen. Tom pressed the call button. Crew requesting assistance. Passenger refusing to comply. Ariana felt her heart jolt painfully. Not from fear, from the familiar sting of injustice. In first class, no one had to say she's black. Their actions already had. 2 minutes later, 2 security officers stepped into the cabin, eyes blank in the way of people who saw themselves only as following orders. Who is Ariana Cole? Ariana stood. I am. Tom pointed directly at her, as if pointing to an object causing trouble. This passenger is refusing crew instructions. Please remove her from the aircraft. Ariana froze for a beat, not out of fear, but at the sheer audacity of the lie. She spoke clearly, every word sharp. I did nothing wrong. I am sitting in the seat I paid for. The officers did not wait. They reached for her arm. One hand tightened hard enough to make Ariana clench her jaw in pain. Amanda shouted, Stop! She is not a threat to anyone. But they did not stop. No one stopped. And the moment they dragged Ariana out of the first-class cabin, she knew her life had just crossed into a new chapter. Not because she was humiliated, but because they had chosen the worst possible person to underestimate. They pulled Ariana away, as if she were a threat rather than a paying passenger, being stripped of the seat she rightfully owned. The heavy footsteps of the security officers thudded against the carpeted floor of the first-class cabin, each impact echoing through the uneasy silence like a hammer-striking stone. Ariana didn't struggle. She didn't plead. She didn't say more than necessary. That calmness in a moment, cut so deeply into her dignity, made a few passengers shift uncomfortably, as if they were witnessing something far beyond their understanding. But most simply turned away. Because people always say they support fairness until fairness inconveniences them. As soon as Ariana was escorted out of the cabin, Heather bent down to help Charles secure his luggage, her voice dripping with flattery. Mr. Whitmore, we apologize for the inconvenience. Everything has been resolved. Charles settled into seat 1A, the seat that didn't belong to him, a seat he had claimed through entitlement and a biased system. He leaned back, satisfied, as if the world had finally been set back on the right course. Ariana was pushed toward the exit, her laptop carried carelessly by one of the officers, the device knocking hard against the edge of the door. A small sound, but one capable of destroying nights of preparation, the presentation for a multi-million-dollar deal. Be careful with that, she said, her voice steady despite everything. The officer only glanced at her briefly, then gripped the laptop even tighter, as if to prove she had no right to request anything. Ariana felt her pulse climb into her throat, but she forced it down. She knew exactly what could happen if she reacted too strongly, especially considering who she was in their eyes. A black woman who did not know her place, a woman who was difficult, a woman who should be more compliant. They dragged her through the jetway, and the plane door closed behind her with a heavy, icy thud. Like a gate of society slamming shut in her face, not for the first time. One of the security officers said, "You were warned. You need to leave the gate area immediately." Ariana turned to him. "I did not break any laws. We are not debating this." The officer replied, his tone as stiff as a memorized line. "The crew requested your removal. That is enough." Ariana did not answer, because deep down she understood something far more painful than the humiliation itself. This was not the first time, and if she stayed silent, it would not be the last. As she stepped into the terminal, dozens of eyes turned toward her, curious, indifferent, occasionally judgmental. They had no idea what happened, but they were familiar with thinking, if she was removed, she must have done something wrong. A security officer shoved her bag onto a plastic chair, causing her laptop to fall to the floor. A sharp crack. Ariana inhaled, picked it up, and saw a large fracture across the screen, a jagged line, like a streak of black lightning. She blinked once. Her heart tightened. Not because of the damage, but because in that moment she realized they had just fractured something far deeper the work she had poured herself into. No, not an accident. Contempt was its own form of violence. Ariana opened her phone, her fingers slightly trembling, though her voice was not. Ethan. His voice came through within seconds, frantic. Ariana, you're at the gate, right? Why hasn't the flight Ariana cut him off? Her voice was low, steady, sharp as a blade. They just threw me off the plane. Ethan fell silent. A stunned void filled the line. What they wanted me to give up my seat for an older, white male passenger. When I didn't, they called security. That is absolutely unacceptable. They have no idea who you are. Ariana closed her eyes. Ethan, it doesn't matter who they think I am. What matters is what they assumed I was. When she opened her eyes, there was a cold, focused light burning in them. Call Monica, right now. Before Ethan could reply, a woman's voice called out. Ms. Cole. Ariana turned. It was Dr. Amanda Blake, the woman who had stood up for her in the first-class cabin. Amanda hurried over, slightly out of breath. I am so sorry, she said, her eyes burning with indignation. I wish I could have done more. I will testify. I will be a witness. What they did was absolutely discriminatory. Ariana could not find the words. She simply nodded a simple gesture, carrying more gratitude than she had given most strangers in her life. Amanda continued. They treated you like you were a threat. I saw it. I heard it. I will sign whatever statements are needed. This cannot be allowed to slide. Ariana was not someone easily moved, yet in that moment a warmth pressed against her chest. Not weakness. Hope. Rarely in her life had anyone stood by her during moments of injustice. Today, a stranger had done what many who knew her never dared. Thank you, Ariana whispered. But her eyes told a different story. They were sharp as blades, and beneath her calm exterior, a storm was beginning to form. When Amanda walked away, Ariana stood alone before the glass wall of the terminal. Watching the plane, she had been forced off taxi toward the runway. Sunlight glinted across the fuselage of the Aurora Air jet, heading to San Francisco, the city where she was supposed to be in just a few hours. She saw her reflection in the glass, a black woman standing still in the middle of a bustling airport, a cracked laptop in her hands, and eyes unnervingly calm. But everyone knows calm never means surrender. Ariana Cole had been underestimated more times than she could count. So many times she thought she had grown numb to it. But today something awakened. A voice deep inside her, powerful as a roar of fire. Not this time. Not ever again. Ariana turned sharply, walking with purpose toward the information counter. Call Monica. Call Summit Bank. Call the Nexus Logic Board. She knew exactly what needed to be done, and the world was about to learn who she was. The Austin Airport lounge was usually calm, but today, the moment Ariana stepped inside, It felt as if the room tightened around an invisible current, a current radiating from her. She sat at a table, her laptop in front of her, like an injured witness. The cracked screen fractured the light into thin streaks of lightning, beautiful yet dangerous, mirroring her mood perfectly. Her phone vibrated. One name flashed on the screen, Monica Ruiz. Ariana answered. "Talk to me." Monica began, her voice stripped of comfort and pretense, carrying only the sharp precision of a lawyer who had dismantled dozens of corporate adversaries. Ethan filled me in. "I need every detail," Ariana told her. She left nothing out, the suspicious glance, Charles's mocking laugh, the tight grip of security, the hollow crack of her laptop screen splitting. Monica did not interrupt, not once. She listened and absorbed every word with the focus of a predator, tracking prey in the dark. When Ariana finished, Monica exhaled the single breath, revealing how truly furious she was. They committed 4 major violations, Monica said. Racial discrimination, breach of carrier contract, physical misconduct, and destruction of your property. She paused. Then her voice dropped deep and final. And they chose the wrong person. Within 5 minutes, Monica had launched an emergency video call with 3 senior members of Nexus Logic's legal division. Ariana watched their faces appear on the screen, each one wearing the expression of someone handling a national-level cyber attack. Monica wasted no time. "This is not a minor incident," she said. "This is a pattern." I did a quick search. Over the past 3 years, Aurora Airlines has settled at least 12 discrimination complaints, all buried under NDAs. A young attorney looked up from a stack of files. Aurora's CEO has been giving special protection to certain VIP clients, including a Mr. Charles Whitmore. Ariana did not flinch, but her chest tightened. The pieces began falling into place. Heather was not just biased. Tom was not just overstepping authority. Security was not just following procedure. This was a system built to protect the powerful and discard those who weren't deemed worthy. The meeting shifted to strategy. Monica commanded the room like a general. 1, I want a formal preservation notice for all video footage from the jet bridge cameras, cabin cameras, and crew audio recordings. 2, reach out to the witness, Dr. Amanda Blake. I want her information within 24 hours. 3, pull every past Aurora case. If there is a pattern, we hold the blade. Then Monica stopped, her eyes sharpened like the edge of a weapon. But the biggest strike has to come from Ariana. Every face turned toward Ariana on the screen. Monica spoke slowly, clearly. "You are a diamond-tier client of Summit United Bank. Summit is financing Aurora's $150 million expansion loan. If you raise a major ethical concern, all disbursements will be frozen immediately." Ariana leaned back. She did not need it explained. She did not need time to process. She knew exactly where her leverage lay. She had simply never wanted to use it this way. Ethan spoke softly, cautious. "Ariana, if you do this, Aurora will be paralyzed within 24 hours. It could create a real crisis." Ariana looked up. Her voice was not loud, but sharp as forged steel. And being dragged off a plane in first class was not a crisis for me. No one answered. Because no answer was needed. 15 minutes later, Monica sent the first formal notice to Summit United Bank, including the evidence, and an official request for an ethics investigation into Aurora Airlines. 30 minutes after that, an unusually fast reply arrived. "Your company's standing grants sufficient grounds to request a reassessment of the partner. Summit will suspend all Aurora Airlines disbursements until the matter is resolved." Ethan stared at Ariana wide-eyed. They actually did it. Ariana did not smile, but her eyes carried a light people only saw in those who had reached a point beyond hesitation. Resolve. The cold air from the lounge vents brushed through Ariana's hair, lifting a few strands. She closed her eyes for a few seconds, letting silence steady her. In that stillness, she replayed the moment she was dragged from first class, the whispers of passengers, the avoidance in their eyes, the feeling of being dismissed so thoroughly that no one bothered to verify the truth. Ariana opened her eyes. "Monica," she said, "I know this is not just about me. It is about everyone who has ever been treated as if they did not belong in a place they had every right to be." Monica's voice softened slightly. "Then what do you want to do next?" Ariana looked straight at the screen. Her face was so calm that everyone stopped taking notes. "First," she said, "find the others. Anyone who went through something similar." Ethan nodded. "Even if they signed NDAs," Ariana continued, "let them know that this time they are not alone." She glanced down at her cracked laptop. It looked like a wound, but also like a trophy. "Second," she said, "book me another flight. I am still going to San Francisco." Ethan hesitated. "Are you sure? Do you want to rest first?" Ariana opened her laptop, despite the spiderweb fracture across the screen. "We have a deal to close," she said, her voice so firm that both Ethan and Monica fell silent. "And I will not let their discrimination keep me from the future I built." Near the end of the meeting, Monica said something that made the entire room go still. "Ariana, you do realize they will fight back. Aurora is a major corporation. They have money. They have lawyers. They have influence." Ariana stood, picked up her laptop, and turned toward the large glass window. The airport light framed her silhouette in gold. She spoke without turning back. "Real power does not belong to the one who shouts the loudest." She paused. "Real power belongs to the one who uses their voice to correct what is wrong." Then Ariana turned, meeting the screen with unwavering eyes. "And this time I will not be silent." In that moment, Ariana Cole had taken her first step into a battle she never chose, but was the only one strong enough to finish. And Aurora Airlines was only beginning to feel the storm they had summoned upon themselves. The glass walls of Austin Airport reflected Ariana like a sharp silhouette drawn across a chaotic morning. She had not left the airport yet, but within just a few hours, news of Aurora Airlines dragging a black woman out of her first-class seat had already begun to spread, small at first scattered, but exactly the kind of story social media devours: injustice, power, imbalance, and a moment caught in public. All it needed was a spark, and Ariana knew that spark was already burning. As soon as Monica sent her notice to Summit United Bank, the bank's ethics review protocols activated. At that exact moment, a post appeared on X, written by a passenger in seat 2F, who had recorded Ariana being escorted out. "I do not know what happened, but a black woman was pulled out of Aurora Airlines first class, so an older white man could have her seat. No one asked who was right or wrong. They just dragged her away. This is not okay." He did not add hashtags. He did not mention Ariana's name. He did not know who she was. He just wrote what he saw, and that honesty made the post explode. 5 minutes, 1,200 likes. 10 minutes, 4,000 retweets. 30 minutes, Delicious boycott Aurora Air, landed in the Texas trending list. 1 hour it hit the national top trend. Ariana watched her phone vibrate, non-stop notifications pouring in like a storm. "Hey, you are going viral," Ethan texted. Ariana did not smile, but her heartbeat thudded once heavy. Not because of the attention, but because she knew Aurora would strike back. And they did. Only 90 minutes later, Aurora Airlines released a statement that read as if it had been drafted, long before the incident even happened. A passenger refused to comply with crew instructions, creating a potential safety risk. The crew followed established protocol in requesting the passenger be escorted off the aircraft. No name, no description, no evidence. But the wording was crafted for one purpose: to activate an old, poisonous instinct. Without realizing it, people imagine a disruptive passenger, and they picture someone who looks like Ariana, not Charles. The tactic was old, cruel, and painfully familiar. Monica read the statement and let out a short, humorless laugh. They want a media war. Good. I like opponents who choose the battlefield. While Aurora scrambled to distort the narrative, Monica and the legal team completed 3 counterstrikes. 1A preservation request for all cabin camera footage and Aurora's internal logs. 2A petition for a court order to protect evidence. 3A notice to the airport demanding that jetway and gate camera files be secured. Airlines often lose cabin footage when trouble arises. Monica knew this, and she denied them the chance. Meanwhile, Ethan tracked down Dr. Amanda Blake. It took him less than 20 minutes to find her email through public medical records. A message was sent immediately. "Thank you for speaking up. We would like to invite you to serve as a witness if you are willing." 3 minutes later, Amanda replied, "I am willing." They treated her like she did not exist. "I will not stay silent." Ariana read the email, her chest tightening. For the first time in over 20 years of battling prejudice, a stranger had voluntarily chosen to stand beside her. As Ariana prepared to board another airline for San Francisco, her phone lit up again, this time with a message from Monica. Ari Summit responded. Ariana stopped walking. She opened the message. After reviewing the ethical concerns raised by Nexus Logic Summit, United Bank will temporarily freeze the $150 million loan for Aurora Airlines. Ariana felt a chill surge down her spine. This was not just a blow. It was a declaration. We believe you more than we believe them. In the corporate world, that was the highest form of trust. Ethan Ariana said, "Prepare an internal report for the board. They need to know everything." "Do you think the board will worry?" Ethan asked. Ariana shook her head. "They will be proud that we defend our integrity." On the replacement flight to San Francisco, Ariana leaned her head toward the window. The sunset painted the clouds in blazing red streaks, a breathtaking view. But her mind was elsewhere. She remembered the moment security dragged her from her seat. She remembered Heather's cold, indifferent stare. She remembered the passenger's sighs, as if her very presence had been an inconvenience. The humiliation was not just a cut on her dignity. It was the culmination of hundreds of tiny cuts throughout her life, each one small, each one survivable, but together forming a weight like a stone. And finally today was the day that stone cracked. Ariana whispered to herself a vow. "This time I will not walk softly." When she landed in San Francisco, her phone buzzed relentlessly. A message from Ethan. "Ari, you are on the news." A message from Monica. "Aurora is taking heavy media damage." The original post just hit 800,000 likes. A message from the CEO of a partner company. "If you need support, Nexus Logic has allies." Ariana stood in the crowded SFO terminal, but it felt like the world was shifting under her feet, faster, louder, more violently than ever. Then Ethan sent one more message. Aurora Air is trying to identify you for a counterattack. Brace yourself. Ariana lifted her head. In her eyes was a light Ethan had never seen so clearly in all the years he worked beside her. Not fear, not anxiety, but the awareness of true power. Ethan, she replied, let them look. One breath, one heartbeat, one choice. Because by the time they learn who I am, it will already be too late. San Francisco greeted Ariana with a thin veil of fog, flashing LED signs and intercom announcements, echoing like the heartbeat of a city that never sleeps. But she had no time to absorb any of it. Her phone vibrated non-stop, as if the entire world was knocking at her door at once. Monica called just as Ariana stepped into a taxi. Brace yourself, Monica said immediately. Aurora has struck back. Ariana did not sound surprised. In fact, she was calm enough to ask, did they go dirty or very dirty? Monica let out a cold laugh. Very dirty. 1. The unilateral media attack the reversed accusation. Aurora Airlines released a second press statement, longer, more detailed, and entirely fabricated. Passenger AC female engaged in disruptive behavior raised her voice at crew members and refused to comply with safety instructions. The crew had no choice but to escort the passenger off the aircraft to ensure the safety of others. They painted Ariana as someone who could not control herself. They knew the public was more likely to believe such narratives when the subject was a black woman. They knew how to use language to evoke the image of a troublemaker, and they avoided using her full name, referring to her only as AC, under the guise of protecting her privacy, when all they wanted was to spread insinuation without taking legal responsibility. Aurora did not need to say anything directly. The public would imagine the rest on their own. A cowardly tactic, but an effective one. 2. The online harassment, the dark threats. Not long after Ariana began receiving spam messages, then emails, then anonymous comments. Each sentence felt like a blade. You must have done something to get thrown off. First class is not for people like you. Stop playing the victim. We know where you live in Austin. That last line made Ariana freeze. We know where you live in Austin. Her whole body went cold. Not because she feared for herself, but because she thought of the one person she loved more than anything. Her mother Linda, who was probably teaching an evening class at that moment, unaware that shadows were gathering around her daughter. Ariana immediately called Raymond Washington, a former FBI agent, and Nexus Logic's head of security. His voice was low and firm. I am already tracking the accounts, sending threats. I am deploying protection for you and your mother tonight. Ariana exhaled a heavy breath that even the taxi driver noticed in the rearview mirror. Thank you, Raymond. This is not about thanks, he said. It is my responsibility. 3. Corporate isolation partners pulling away. That evening when Ariana reached her hotel, Ethan called urgently. Ari, we have a situation. Some Nexus Logic partners are postponing their meetings. 3 major companies want to reassess the potential media risk before signing contracts. Ariana closed her eyes. Not because she was shocked, but because it hurt. She had known this was coming. Every black woman who dared to stand up paid a price. Sometimes it was their job, sometimes their reputation, sometimes their safety, and sometimes, as now, it was the company they had poured their soul into building. Ethan Ariana said quietly, let them postpone. Anyone who makes decisions out of fear was never a true partner. Ethan paused, then whispered, "I am proud of you." Ariana gave a tired smile. "Thank you, but this is not the moment for pride." 4. The fracture within even strength has breaking points. Past midnight, Ariana sat alone in her hotel room. No laptop, no email, no attempt to act strong. Just the bare truth. She was exhausted. Deeply exhausted. The room was dim city lights filtering through the window in a faint gold glow. Ariana looked at her hands. Her fingers trembled slightly, something she had been hiding all day. She had been dragged off a plane, humiliated in front of strangers, attacked online, threatened, isolated, misjudged, and her pain as a woman of color had been weaponized for entertainment. No one at Aurora saw her as a human being, just an obstacle, a problem, something to remove quickly. Ariana wondered, was it worth it? Was it worth sacrificing her peace for a battle she did not choose? A single tear fell, just one, but enough to loosen the weight she had carried all day. She reached for her phone, not to call Ethan, not Monica. She called the one person who could anchor her back to the ground, her grandmother, Gloria Ellis. 5. The call that shifted the war. Baby, her grandmother's voice came through warm, slow, familiar. Ariana choked up before she could speak. "Grandma, they are threatening me. They are lying about me. They are trying to break me." The line went quiet for a moment, the kind of silence only someone who had endured decades of racism in America could hold. Then her grandmother spoke. "Ariana, do you think you are the first in our family to be treated unfairly?" Ariana bit her lip, tears shining on her cheeks. Her grandmother continued. "In 1967, I was thrown out of elementary school for protesting segregated classrooms. In 1971, your grandfather was beaten by police for trying to register to vote. Your mother worked 3 jobs not because she wasn't skilled, but because society did not want to pay a black woman fairly." Her voice grew stronger, despite being 86. "But we got back up, every single one of us, every generation." Ariana held her breath. "You're not fighting alone," her grandmother said. "And you know this, the strong one is not the one with privilege. The strong one is the one who dares to say, 'Enough.'" Ariana whispered, "I am just afraid things will get worse." Her grandmother chuckled softly. "Child, sometimes things must get worse so they can finally get better." In that moment, Ariana's heavy heart seemed to pause, then beat with new force. She wiped her tears, her voice turning solid as stone. "I understand, Grandma." 6. Final note, the warrior reborn. After the call, Ariana sat on the edge of the bed, her back straight, her gaze no longer clouded. She was no longer trembling, no longer doubting, no longer afraid. Instead, she felt a different version of herself, rising stronger, bolder, unshakable. Her phone lit up. A message from Monica. "Civil rights groups are reaching out. They want to join us." A message from Ethan. "Ari, the narrative is shifting. You need to see this." He added a link, "Aurora Airlines under fire for discrimination claims." Ariana set the phone down. She knew. Tomorrow Aurora would face something they never expected. Not an angry passenger. Not a single lawsuit. But a wave they had created themselves, a wave they could not stop. Ariana stood and looked at herself in the mirror. A black woman, slender hair tied in a neat bun. But the eyes staring back at her were no longer the eyes of someone humiliated on an airplane. They were the eyes of a warrior. Tomorrow, she whispered, we strike back. The next morning, San Francisco woke under a blue-gray sky, a thin mist clinging to the buildings, like a quiet warning that today would not be peaceful. Ariana knew it from the moment she opened her eyes. Her phone exploded with notifications. Not the soft buzz of ordinary messages, but a constant vibration, like a storm pounding on every door at once. Ethan sent the first update. "Ari, Aurora just filed a countersuit against you." Ariana raised an eyebrow. There it was. She opened the scanned file from Monica. In the complaint, Aurora accused her of disrupting business operations, causing financial loss as a client, and defaming the image of the airline. Oh, a familiar game. Blame the victim, apply legal pressure, drag things out, and hope she backs down. Ariana set the phone on the table. 1 second, 2 seconds. Then she laughed a short sound, humorless but fully awake. They picked the wrong side of this fight. 1. Emergency meeting at Nexus Logic. The board steps into the war. 8 a.m. Nexus Logic's virtual boardroom lit up. Each board member appeared on screen, some still in bathrobes, some standing by windows overlooking Austin Bay, some looking like they had not yet had their first coffee. The chairman, 52-year-old James North, studied Ariana's face, as if to gauge the state of her spirit. "We need to understand the full picture," he said. "Ariana, you start, without shaking, without hiding anything." Ariana told them everything. She let every detail surface: the humiliation of being dragged from seat 1A, the crack across her laptop screen, Amanda Blake's words, the way Heather looked at her like she was occupying a space that did not belong to her. When she finished, the room went silent. Not from surprise, from anger. James spoke first. "Their actions are unacceptable. I vote that we support a full investigation." Another director, 61-year-old Diana Moore, leaned forward. "If you want to go to war legally, we do it. If you want to hit them financially, we do it. If you want to turn this into a case study on racial bias in aviation, we do that too." Then a softer, more hesitant voice cut in. "Ariana, we should be careful," said Harold Dean, the chief financial officer. "A conflict on this scale could get us labeled as divisive. It could affect our stock price." Ariana looked straight at him. "So you want me to be quiet? You want me to let that airline keep treating people like me this way?" Harold faltered. He lowered his eyes, unable to argue. James concluded, "This meeting is not to decide whether we fight or not. It is to confirm that no one here gets to stand on the sidelines. Nexus Logic will walk into this with you, Ariana." A notification pinged. The voting system went live. Every hand went up. 100% in favor, even Harold's. 2. Media torpedoes a calculated strike from Aurora. While Nexus Logic aligned behind Ariana, Aurora released an exclusive interview with a major financial magazine. Aurora's spokesperson said, "Our employees have been threatened." Passenger AC yelled, "Created chaos." "We did everything we could to protect the safety of the flight." Ariana read it and felt her blood heat up. Yelled, "Chaos." She had not even raised her voice once. Monica called at the same time. "We have to respond. Not just to protect your name, but to stop them from doing this to anyone else." Ariana breathed slowly, letting the emotion settle. Then she said, "Contact Dr. Amanda Blake." "And I want the cabin camera footage." Monica gave a short laugh. "Cabin footage? You think Aurora will hand that over?" Ariana replied, "No. But the court will." 3. Parallel investigations, secret doors forced open. At the same time, Ethan worked like a storm. He reached out to friends in the startup world, black CEO networks, and civil rights organizations. Within hours, Ariana received messages from 6 black tech CEOs, 2 female founders on the Fortune 100 list, 3 media personalities, and a team of top civil rights attorneys in the country. They all said the same thing. "We stand with you." One CEO wrote, "You are not the first person Aurora has done this to. But you might be the first strong enough to force them to change." Ariana's hands trembled slightly as she read it. Not from fear, but because the solidarity was so vast, so real, and so perfectly timed. 4. When indirect attacks become the most dangerous weapon, the battle was not only in the media and in court. Another fight, quieter and more poisonous, was unfolding inside Ariana herself. That evening, when she returned to her hotel room, after a long day, her inbox was filled with threats. "We will find you. If you had stayed in the seat meant for you, this would not have happened. You will regret going against Aurora. People like you only cause problems." One email even included a photo of her mother Linda's house. Ariana felt her stomach twist, not because she feared for herself, but because Linda, who had never harmed anyone, was now being made a target by cowards. Ariana called Raymond immediately. "How is the security around my mother?" Raymond did not hesitate. 2 men stationed, one inside, one outside. No one is getting near her. Ariana closed her eyes. Her breath shook slightly. "Thank you," Raymond replied. "No thanks needed. Just do not quit. They are doing this to scare you. If you are scared, they win." Ariana opened her eyes. In them, fear was already turning into something else, fuel. 5. The decisive call, the voice that shifted the path of the war. 11:42 p.m., Ariana's phone rang. Unknown number, Seattle area code. Ariana answered, her tone cold. "Who is this?" A deep voice came through, strained, exhausted, like someone standing at the edge of a cliff. "Ariana Cole. This is Mark Henderson, CEO of Aurora Airlines." Ariana straightened. Mark continued trying to sound composed, but panic seeped into every word. "I believe there have been some misunderstandings. I would like to speak with you directly." Ariana did not respond immediately. She let the silence stretch a few extra seconds, the silence of someone who held the advantage. Then she spoke, clear and steady. "No, Mark. This is not a misunderstanding." She paused. "This is consequence." On the other end, Mark was speechless for a moment, not because he did not understand the word, but because for the first time, someone with real leverage was using it on him. Ariana ended the call with a single line. "If you want to talk, speak to my lawyers." Then she hung up. Ariana set the phone down. In the mirror, the reflection staring back at her was no longer the woman dragged out of first class. No longer the woman whose hands shook reading threats. No longer the woman worried about partners walking away. It was a leader, a symbol, a storm Aurora had no way to stop. She drew a deep breath. Tomorrow Aurora Airlines would finally understand. They had not removed a passenger. They had expelled a revolution. The next morning, San Francisco shone bright under the sun. But for Ariana, it was not a sunrise. It was Judgment Day. Today, Aurora Airlines would be forced to face the truth. Today, a system they believed was untouchable would be dragged into the light. Today, Ariana Cole, the woman they once dismissed as a passenger who did not belong in first class, would force them to listen. And it all began with a video. 1. The truth in the cabin camera, a devastating blow. 8:15 a.m. in Monica Ruiz's office. The head of Nexus Logic's legal division opened an email from the court. Aurora Airlines was ordered to submit the cabin camera footage from the flight where Ariana was removed. Monica opened the file. Ethan and Ariana stood behind her. On the screen was the raw truth. Heather's suspicious voice. "Are you sure this is your seat?" Ariana handed over her ticket, completely calm. Charles Whitmore entered late, did not bother to look at his ticket, and simply said, "I always sit in this seat." The crew ignored the ticket, ignored the protocol, and immediately sided with Charles. No shouting, no disruption, just a black woman stating the truth, and being dragged away like a criminal. But the last part of the footage was the most damning. A passenger in row 3 said, "She was here first." Heather replied, "You need to stay quiet. First class has rules." The room went silent. Ethan muttered, "My God, they just destroyed themselves." Monica smirked slightly. "No, Ariana. You destroyed them." Ariana did not smile. She stared at the screen, her heart heavy as stone. She took no pleasure in watching them exposed. What she felt was pain, because this was not the first time a black woman had been treated as less than, and it would certainly not be the last unless someone broke the cycle. Ariana had chosen to be that someone. 2. National television, the interview that shook the country. That day, Oriana agreed to appear on a major news program, not to beg for sympathy, not to cry, but to ask the right questions. She sat upright in the studio, the lights glinting off her navy blazer, her voice rock steady. The host asked, "Is there anything you would like to say to Aurora Airlines?" Ariana looked straight into the camera. "I am not against a company. I am against a mindset. The belief that some people are more worthy of respect than others." The studio fell silent. Ariana continued, "I do not want compensation. I want structural change. If they think this is just about me, they do not understand how big this problem really is." By the time the show ended, the hashtag #StandWithAriana had passed 5 million tweets. Thousands of people were sharing their own stories of discrimination at airports, in restaurants, in hospitals, at work. Ariana's story was no longer an incident. It had become a movement. 3. Aurora's board falls apart. The CEO loses control. That night, the top-floor boardroom of Aurora's Seattle headquarters was lit up late into the evening. Mark Henderson, the CEO, stood in the center of the room, sweat soaking through the back of his shirt, his hands gripping a stack of reports. The chief financial officer shouted, "The $150 million loan has been frozen. We cannot pay the deposits on 8 new aircraft." The head of legal snapped. 3 investors pulled out in 24 hours. Where did that video come from? Who let it leak? A board member slammed his hand on the table. "You told the press Ariana was disruptive. Then the video shows the opposite. Are you trying to sink this company?" Mark stammered, "I did not know the cabin cameras had captured enough." The chairman of the board stood up. "Mark, you have created the biggest crisis in this company's history. Tonight, we will vote." Mark looked around. Every face was cold. In that moment, he understood. Ariana Cole was about to end his career. 4. The turning point, a call from a whistleblower. 9:47 p.m. Monica's phone vibrated. Unknown number. A whispering voice. "Work for Aurora. I have to tell the truth." Monica motioned for Ariana to stay quiet and activated a legal recording. "We have internal training documents," the caller said. "There is a section that states, in cases of conflict, prioritize long-term VIP customers, high-income clients, or passengers with strong brand image." Ariana cut in. "And what about black passengers?" There was silence, long, still, and heavy. Then the caller said quietly, "The examples in the slides, the ones being prioritized, are all white. The passengers being asked to give up their seats are almost all people of color." Ethan clenched his fist. My God, this system was designed like this. Monica nodded. This is the kind of evidence that can destroy them. The whistleblower finished with a sentence that sent a chill down Oriana's spine. I just want you to know this. You are not the first. You are just the first strong enough to make them listen. Ariana closed her eyes, her heart tightening. That sentence rang in her mind like the bell at the start of a revolution. 5. The historic meeting Aurora walks into. Nexus Logic. 2 days later, Nexus Logic's headquarters in Austin was wrapped in an eerie quiet. No one chatted, no one joked. Everyone understood today was not an ordinary day. A convoy of sleek black cars stopped at the entrance. Mark Henderson stepped out, his face pale, his steps unsteady. He looked as if he had aged 15 years in a single week. Behind him were 3 Aurora board members. They all kept their heads down, avoiding the eyes of Nexus Logic employees watching them through the glass. They no longer carried authority, only consequences. In the conference room, Ariana entered last. Mark shot up to his feet on instinct. "Ariana, I sit down," she said. She did not raise her voice, but her authority froze the entire room. Mark sat like a student, scolded in front of the class. Ariana opened the folder in front of her. Her hand did not tremble. "Here is what I require," she said, her tone calm yet sharp as a blade. 1, a nationwide public apology. 2, the termination of Heather Tom and every manager involved. 3, the creation of an independent oversight committee. 4, mandatory anti-bias training for the entire company. 5, monitored diversity hiring targets with regular public reporting. 6, a $100 million fund to support passengers who faced discrimination. 7, scholarships for black students pursuing aviation careers. 8, compensation for all past victims whose cases Aurora buried. Mark almost choked. This will bankrupt us." Ariana met his eyes. "No. What bankrupted you was the way you treated your customers." One Aurora executive spoke up weakly. "We agree to all terms." Mark turned to them in panic. "You cannot." The Aurora chairman cut him off. "Be quiet, Mark. You have done enough damage." He turned back to Oriana. "We accept. All of it." Ariana nodded slightly. "Then sign." They signed. No one objected. And just like that, a multi-billion-dollar airline knelt before a woman they once dismissed. 6. The ending the day Ariana flew again. 1 year later. Ariana stepped into Aurora's first-class cabin, now run by new leadership, new policies, and a new culture. A black flight attendant approached her with a warm, genuine smile. "Ms. Cole, it is an honor to serve you today." Ariana looked around. The crew was more diverse, the atmosphere lighter. No suspicious stares, no prejudice hanging overhead like a low ceiling. Amanda Blake, the doctor who had spoken up that day, was seated in 1C. She smiled at Ariana. "You changed the entire industry." Ariana sat down in seat 1A, the very seat they once tried to take from her. She said quietly, "It was not just me. It was everyone who was ever silenced." The plane took off. Ariana gazed out the window at clouds drifting under golden sunlight. This time the feeling was different. No heaviness, no pain, no anger. Only peace, the peace of someone who fought, who won, and who did the right thing. And as the aircraft climbed higher into the sky, Ariana whispered a line that sounded like she was speaking only to herself. But in truth, it was for everyone following her story. This is only the beginning.